Good morning, everybody. Let me just start out by saying that how proud I am of our staff, our entire organization, and particularly our players for the way they handled this past season. The effort and patience and discipline and sacrifice that everybody went through, not seeing their families and all the protocols that kept changing seemingly on a weekly basis. We were able to get through and play the whole season with relatively few bumps in the road, and that was no small feat. In terms of the season itself, looking back a year ago, I can tell you that we're very pleased with the selection that we made at head coach. I thought Joe did a very good job considering what he had to deal with. And when you think about it, here you have a brand new head coach at 38 years of age, and look what he was asked to deal with. A pandemic, no off-season program, no mini camps, no preseason games, virtual meetings, protocols that kept changing, and he loses his best player in week two. I thought he showed great leadership and great adaptability. I mean, nothing seemed to faze him during the year. If something had to change, he just made the change, and we went from there. And I thought he showed real leadership and grit and determination the entire time. I thought he represented our franchise very well, the way I want our head coach to represent our franchise. I thought he established a great foundation and a great culture here. I know that culture word is overused, but I think it's so important, and I think we have the beginnings of a very good culture here. I also thought that he and Dave worked very well together. All of our personnel decisions, I thought, improved significantly this year. They were able to agree on basically every decision that we made. I thought our draft was solid, our free agency moves were solid, and I think we have the foundation for something that can be very successful going forward. Obviously, I'm not pleased with the number of games we won. I'm disappointed that we couldn't do better than 6-10. But I do see progress in the building here. I think the quality of people that we have in the locker room has improved a great deal. I think we have some great leaders down there. I think we've established a basis for a foundation that can have continued success going forward. And I'm excited about what the future holds for this team. I think the fact that we went 5-3 over the second half of the season gives me some reason for encouragement. Also, I'm obviously disappointed we didn't make the playoffs. We had every opportunity to do that. I only had to win one more game, and we didn't get that done. But I think what I wanted to see this year was some progress and some reason for some optimism going forward, and I did see that, and that's why I'm optimistic about what we can do in the future. So. With that, I'm happy to take whatever questions you have.
Art Stapleton, Director.
Hey, John. Good morning.
Good morning.
Back in September, you didn't want to put a win total on this season, and you cited a vision that you wanted to create with Joe and what obviously what you just said in your opening statement. I'm curious, how much of it is the leap of faith compared to what you've done in the last couple of years following losing seasons, and how much is it tangible? Is there tangible evidence that you've seen beyond the record that you could describe as to why you're as confident in this season, maybe more so than you were in the past couple of years?
I think it's both of that, Art. I think there's always a certain leap of faith when you're coming off of a season when you only won 6 games, but just the quality of the players that we have in the locker room, the fact that they all seem to buy in to Joe's philosophy, to Joe's message. The effort was really good all year long. The discipline was really good all year long. I just think that there's a different feeling in the building now than there has been in a number of years, and I think that's why I'm optimistic going forward.
Hey, Paul Schwartz, New York Post.
Hey, John.
Paul, how you doing?
Hey, good. You didn't actually come out and make an announcement today that Dave Gellerman is coming back as general manager. Is that because that was not a decision that you made? It was just something that was naturally happening. And why is Dave coming back for another year as general manager?
Well, he is coming back if you want a formal announcement about that. I don't think there was any particular reason why we didn't make any formal announcement, but I think that the way Dave and Joe worked together, I thought our personnel decisions were really sound this year. I feel better about our roster than I have in years, and I think the two of them working together have built something, or have started the building process of something that can have sustained success going forward. And I just didn't think that making a change at this point in time was something that was going to be beneficial to us. They've worked really well together, and I'm really pleased with the players that they've brought in here, and I think that gives us a chance going forward.
And one quick follow-up, I know we have a lot of people, is there any change to the structure at all? Or is this is the same structure as it's always been? There was some speculation Joe's going to have a lot more power now or something.
No, Paul, it's the same structure it's always been. The general manager and the head coach collaborate on personnel decisions. And what I've been really pleased about is, they haven't agreed 100% of the time, but my father used to have a saying, if you both agree all the time, then I don't need both of you. But I haven't had to intercede on one occasion to break any ties. They've managed to talk it through and work it out, showed good communication, and at the end of the day, the decision that gets made is the New York Giants' decision. It's not Joe's decision or Dave's decision. So they've collaborated really well together, and that's one of the reasons why, again, I'm optimistic about our future.
Thank you. Bruce Beck, NBC.
John, I know you're happy here with the progress and optimistic about the future, but my question is, how long do the fans need to wait for a winning team to emerge?
Well, Bruce, hopefully not too much longer, because I can't wait too much longer, quite frankly. I'm tired of sitting up here at the end of the year trying to explain what went wrong and why I feel optimistic about the future. I want to do it after a winning season. And I do believe that we have the right people in the building, that we have a much better locker room than we've ever had before. And I think there's reason for optimism. I feel good about the way the personnel decisions were made this year. And, we have some opportunities now in the draft and free agency to improve the roster even further. So I think if our fans continue to stay patient with us, that they will see a winning team pretty soon.
Ryan Dunleavy, New York Post.
Good morning, John. I have two questions related to the NFC East. The first is, did you reach out to Eagles ownership at all, either before Joe said what he said or after, about how they handled their last game? And then the second one is, in evaluating your season, did you have to take into account the reason you were playing meaningful games in December was the rest of the division struggled so much? You guys would have been 4 games out of first in every other division.
Well, the answer to your first question is no, I did not reach out to the Eagles organization either before or after. I mean, the reason we didn't make the playoffs is we didn't win enough games. We had to win one more game to get to the playoffs. That's on us. We can't blame that on anybody else. I'm very conscious of where the division was this year and what the final record was. But I think you'll see a much stronger division next year. And listen, we didn't win enough games, but I do feel like we're making progress now. Some people may dispute that, and time will tell if I'm right or not. But I believe very strongly we did make enough progress to warrant staying the course with the people that we have in the building.
Tom Rock, Newsday.
John, I have 2 questions also to follow Ryan. The first is, what was the season like for you watching games in empty stadiums, in your empty stadium?
It was a very strange feeling and not a good one, and not one that I hope to repeat. It just coming into our stadium and not feeling any energy from the crowd, I think was pretty difficult. And hopefully that's not going to be the case next year. But it was an eerie feeling each week walking into really every stadium that we walked into, even those that had limited capacity. It just didn't feel the same. It's just not the same having your fans there to support you, and I think the players feed off that energy. And not having that, I think, hurt us this year.
And the second question is, Joe has obviously expressed his conviction about Daniel as the quarterback moving forward. Do you share that, and why?
I do share that. I think, Daniel, before he got hurt, I thought was playing really well during that winning streak that we had there. Then he got hurt. I think it was in Cincinnati, and then he wasn't quite the same for the next few weeks. I thought he played very well this past Sunday, and also played well in the Baltimore game. Our coaches all of them are very high on Daniel, and I feel the same way. I think he has what it takes to lead us to where we want to go.
Dan Duggan, DF Needed.
Hey, John, I just wanted to circle back to the decision with Dave real quick. I mean, I understand you saying you're seeing progress with him and Joe, but what do you say to fans who say, in his third year, you guys, win 6 games, then in 3 years, you won 15, and they just feel like that's just not enough progress?
Well, I can understand that, and there's no defending the record. There's no defending that at all. We haven't won enough games. But listen, we made some miscalculations in 2018 with some of our personnel decisions. But I think the last 2 years, particularly this past year, we've seen significant improvement. And I just felt like to break that up now and to bring in somebody new from the outside was not going to be beneficial for us. I think Dave and Joe worked very well together. Our personnel decisions, I think, were very sound. And I have every reason to think that that'll be the case going forward.
And if I could follow up, you mentioned 2018. This notion's coming out there that was a mandate from ownership that you had to make one more run with Eli. Is that true?
That's absolute nonsense. We have never made any such, given any such orders or directions, whatnot. I want the general manager and the coach to agree on the roster and the players that should be on the roster. I'll give my opinion, but I want them to have a conviction about it going forward. And listen, we definitely made some miscalculations in a number of areas in 2018, but there was never any direction from ownership one way or the other.
Thanks, John.
Pat Leonard, Daily News.
Hey, John, thanks for doing this. Happy New Year.
Thanks.
Is there any kind of contract extension happening with Dave, or are you leaving his contract situation?
Well, Pat, I don't comment on people's contracts and how much longer they have or anything. So I'm not gonna start by doing that now.
Okay. And what is your barometer, if you consider this year progress, then what is your barometer for progress for Dave as general manager and for your team in 2021?
Well, I'd like to see our team win more games, Pat. I'd like to see us get back into the playoffs, but I'm not going to ever set a minimum number of games that we have to win or make any kind of determination like that. Again, I want to feel at the end of next year that we've taken a significant step forward, that it's not another 6-win season or something like that. We need to win more games, but I'm not going to give you a required minimum on that.
How did you weigh or discount the fact that mistakes that Dave has made as GM, including, DeAndre Baker, I'm not going to list all of them, but you connect those mistakes to your 6-10 record this year from the previous 2 years, and why do you not consider those an indictment of the job that's been done?
Well, you use the word indictment. We made some miscalculations in 2018, and I think we to a certain extent paid for that this year by not having some of those players available. There was no question about it. I thought in 19 things got a little bit better, and certainly this past offseason, I thought the personnel decisions that we made, both in the draft and in free agency, were significantly better. So I like the combination that we have here right now, and I didn't see any reason to break that up.
Thanks.
Jordan Rana, ESPN.
Hey, John, Happy New Year. How much did you even contemplate making a change at general manager?
I really didn't contemplate that. Listen, when you go through a season, any season, your feelings change from week to week depending on how you're doing. I certainly didn't feel very good midway through the season. We were sitting there at 1-7. I kept thinking that, I'm seeing a team that's practicing hard. I'm seeing a good attitude out there. Nobody's quitting, but where are the results? Where are the results? Then we started to win a little bit in the second half of the season, and things started to look a little bit better. And I just like the feeling that we have in the locker room. I went to more team meetings than I ever have in the past, and players were so attentive and so tuned into the message that was coming from the head coach. It just seemed like we were on the right track. Now we just have to win some games to prove that we were on the right track. We did a little bit better in the second half of the season. Then Daniel gets hurt, and I think that certainly hurt us a little bit. But I think the fact that we did go 5-3 in the second half of the season gave me some reason for some optimism about what we have in the locker room. Obviously, we need to do better going forward.
And how much did you factor in? I mean, you obviously probably would have felt differently, I would assume, if you were in another division. I think every other division winner won 11 games. Obviously, you were in the division race till the final week. How much did that kind of factor into your overall feeling for the team?
It really didn't. I mean, we were 6-10. We didn't deserve to be in the playoffs at 6-10. We would have taken it, but we didn't deserve to be there. So I think the fact that we started to win some games in the second half of the season, and some of the younger guys that we brought in here were starting to play and show some talent. I think it was really the overall feeling that we're making progress, as opposed to whether we were playing meaningful games or not. We were playing meaningful games because our division is what it is. But I think it was more of a factor of our younger players and some of our new players that we brought in here were showing why we either took them in free agency or picked them in the draft. I think our talent level finally started to show itself a little bit. Now, we're far from a finished product. There are a lot more pieces that we need here, but I think we're in much better shape now than we were a year ago.
Ralph Facciano, SNY.
Hey, John, just to keep on the topic of Dave, a year ago when you said his batting average had to improve, it was viewed as, if it didn't, you would consider a change. I know you just said that you want to see another significant step forward. Is Dave's status still essentially year to year, or have you seen enough now where you're thinking more long term with him?
Well, Ralph, everything in this business is year to year. I mean, you can't, I'm not going to speculate on that. I think his batting average certainly improved this year. Our personnel decisions, I thought, were very sound this year and give us some reason for optimism going forward. And, I'm not going to get into contractual situations with, either staff people or players at this point.
And given his age, and obviously retirement is coming at some point with him, is there any internal succession plan under consideration, or is that something you just put off until he actually does retire?
Listen, you're always thinking about things like that, but there's nothing that I would want to comment on publicly at this point.
Zach Rosenblatt, NJ.
Hey, John. Obviously, the defense had a pretty good season, but the offense finished, 31st in scoring, 31st in yardage. I think it was the highest scoring year in NFL history. I mean, how do you feel about where the team is at in terms of that being kind of behind the curve when it comes to, being able to compete with teams?
Yeah, I think we certainly need to help our offense a little bit this offseason, be it in free agency, and the draft. I think we need some more pieces there. But I think, part of the problem that we had is we had a brand new offensive line with new guys playing new positions. They had never played together before. We had no off season. We had no preseason games for them to get to know each other and get the feel for playing with one another. And they struggled, particularly early in the year, no question about it. I thought they started to play better in the second half of the season. But there's no question that we need to help our offense going forward and add some more pieces, and that'll be a priority for us.
Matt Lombardo, Insider.
Hey, John. You asked fans to be patient again after missing the playoffs 3 years in a row under Dave Gellerman. It seems like even dating back to 2018, some of those decisions were short-sighted decisions, and some of the decisions that were made in the draft, you only have 3 players left each from 2018 and 2019. How do you ask fans to be patient when?
I'll try to. I heard the first part of the question was, how do I ask fans to be patient? So, I feel like that's the only thing I can ask them to do right now. I feel like we're making progress. I think, given the fan mail that I've received, which tends to peak during the losing streak, and then after we win a couple of games, it tends to die down. I think most of our fans believe we're making progress, too. There are always going to be fans that are going to be critical, and rightfully so. And I do believe we're making progress. I am going to ask them to be patient again. I know it's a tough ask. I know they're tired of hearing me say that. But, I am sincere in the belief that we are making progress here.
We'll take 2 more questions. Kim Jones, Tom Canavan. Kim Jones, NFL Network.
Hey, John, thank you for doing this. What was it like for you to watch your team play 14 full games without Saquon? And how do you look at decisions that are going to have to be made in the relative, near future, not immediately perhaps, but in the relative near future about his tenure with the organization?
Well, I mean, it was brutal to watch him go down in week 2. He's such an important part of this team, not only for what he does on the field, but the leadership and all the intangibles he brings to us off the field. And that was really a gut punch. And listen, I'm still happy that we have him. I think knowing him, he's going to come back stronger than ever and be a big part of this team next year. In terms of what the timetable is, it's hard to predict that right now. I know our medical people are very pleased with the progress that he's made, so I certainly expect him to be a Giant for a very long time.
Tom Canavan, AP.
Hey, John, how you doing?
Hey, Tom.
I know how much you like to talk about money, but this year, with no fans and everything, how much of a hit did the Giants take as an organization, and how much did the league take?
Well, I mean, it was a huge financial hit for us this year, no question about it. I mean, we'll suffer some pretty significant financial losses, but that's not going to affect our ability to be active in free agency or to do what we have to do to improve the team. And hopefully this is a one-year thing and that we'll be able to have fans back in the building next season. I don't think there's any guarantee about that, but we're optimistic that particularly as these vaccines get rolled out, that people will start to feel comfortable about coming back into the building again, and that would be a big boost to our players. I know that, being able to play in front of fans again.
Is there any way you have to reach out to get more money, or does that, that's not a problem at this point?
We'll be okay. We're not ready to put a padlock on the door just yet, Tom. I think we'll survive just fine. It's been a tough year from that point of view. But listen, there are people all over this country that are suffering, and so I'm not out here complaining and everything. We'll be fine as an organization going forward.